Hello everyone, welcome to Code Snippets. I'm Milan Sonavne. In this video, we'll be creating a controller, we'll create an exception, we'll throw those exceptions and then handle those exceptions within the same controller using an exception handler. Now, to begin with, I have already created a project and this is my main method over here, and I have three different classes created. Now for this video we won't be using the handler class, so I'll do away with it and we'll work with a single controller. So I have a public class bar controller and yeah, let's go away with this. Let's start from scratch, and I have an exception. Now let's go ahead and have constructors for this exception. I'll need two. That's it. Yes, there we go. Our exception is ready. Now we'll create our controller. For making our controller, we need to use an annotation get mapping, and since this is a bar controller, I will write bar public response entity string. I don't want to return anything, I just want to throw an exception to it. So I'll add that over here. Exception, or rather bar exception. This is bar exception right here. I don't need an exclamation for that. Okay, so the error is because of an import. Right. So last step would be go to application.properties and set your server port. The default is 8080 unless you mention one over here. Now I know in my machine the 8080 is already being used. So I went ahead and I changed it. Now my controller is ready. I'll go ahead and run this application. Run as a Spring Boot app. Okay, we have started the controller advice demo. Now, localhost 9999 and bar. Okay, the response is just as expected. Type internal server error, status 500, and this is the bar exception right here. Alright, now we'll go ahead and handle it. Of course, you can also see it in the console here that the exception has occurred. Right here. Well, there you go. Now, time to handle it. To create an exception handling method, we need another annotation, that is the exception handler. And within it, I'll write which exception this method is supposed to handle. So this is supposed to handle the bar exception dot class. Now, do we have an import for the bar exception? Okay, it's yet to throw an error. Never mind. Public response. I just changed the return type to demonstrate that we can have a different return type whenever we are going into the exception handling method. So let's say that I return a string, and this is a handler bar. Okay, and return I got this exception handle. That's pretty much it. I'll go ahead and save this, and I'll reload this. Okay, the application is started. I'll reload the page. I got this exception handled. Now let's go ahead and create another get mapping. We should not throw a bar exception. This time let's throw an exception. So just go to write it again and copy it. Instead of having this bar, I'll have it as bar, and this will be as bar generic. And this is through not a bar exception, this is the exception right here, generic exception right here, and bar 1 get bar 2. Please don't follow such coding standards. It's bad and very bad to read a code as well. I'm just bored to think of names now at this point. Now I have an exception handler for bar exception.class. If I hit the URL /bar/generic, the controller won't know which method to go to, so I'll be seeing an internal server error again. So what we need is copy this code, paste it. This is handler bar exception, handler bar, let's say specific, and let's call this as handler bar generic. Alright, let's change the message so we know I got this bar exception handled, I got this generic exception handled, and yeah, let's change this to them. In that case, specific, yeah, that's right, generic, yeah. Yeah, that seems good. I'll go ahead and reload this. The application is started. Now I'll go ahead and hit, what do I have to hit? I have to hit bar and I have to hit bar generic. So this is bar. That's strange. Yes, that's because unintentionally I have an ambiguity over here. You see, in the last video I mentioned if within the same controller you have two methods handling the same exception, the controller does not know which method to go to. In that case, it does not handle the exception at all. It just throws the exception right back to the client, which is exactly what we are seeing here right now. Have to be careful when you're copying and pasting the code around. So I'll have to change this bar exception to exception. I'll recompile this, rerun this. And the application is started. I'll reload this, and I got this bar exception handled. When I go for /bar/generic, I got this generic exception handled. Now, if I don't want to have two different methods, or let's say that to handle multiple exceptions, I want to have a same method. So in that case, there's a tweak. Okay, let's go ahead and just delete this line. @exception handler value equals. Now we'll write all the exception classes that we want this method to handle. That includes the bar exception and the exception.class. Now even if I write exception.class over here, that would be sufficient to handle both of the exceptions. I'm writing both of the exceptions over here explicitly just for demonstration purposes. And this will compile as well, just like it was happening before. They started the controller advice. If I go to generic, I get this message printed. I got this bar exception handled. And if I go to bar again, I got this bar exception handled. Alright, so I suppose we have covered pretty much everything for this video. In the next video, we'll have a different class for the exception handler. And also we'll have two different controllers to work with throwing exceptions. Thank you.